We're here every day to keep your problems at bay with the words we say.
Podcast. When you're struck wordless by your late laundry service, you won't need to feel nervous with our podcast. All right. Hey, everybody. Graham here.
Hey, this is Ashkahn.
And today's question is, the state of the industry survey shows people spend about $75,000 per float room. How much of that is the tank cost versus construction cost?
So basically float tanks can range from like probably around $10,000 at the cheapest for a commercial float tank.
Plus pump setup and all of that, yeah.
Up to, they can get up to $90,000 for a float tank.
So if you're buying a $90,000 float tank, then you're now at negative money for room construction, negative $15,000. So, it depends a lot on what people are doing individually. And of course, the survey itself is very subjective for what people are putting in there almost. So how people are defining everything that's going into their room construction is probably not 100% accurate even between individuals filling out the survey,
But, I would say if I had to make an average guess of how much people are spending on float tanks, it's probably somewhere around like $30,000 a float tank.
Yeah.
35.
Which would be about $45,000 for doing the room construction. And I would say actually between maybe like $35,000 to $45,000 is not a crazy amount to assume for room construction. So not quite half and half, or half and half with a split that's different for different people or something like that, and depending on how much soundproofing largely you're doing.
Yeah, and we see that in general in terms of people's cost total, float tank plus rooms. It really does seem to range pretty much somewhere between like $50,000 and $100,000 for the whole shebang for a room. So seeing the industry was always kind of our calculations, and then seeing the industry report average that at about $75,000 kind of seems to support that. So my guess is people are doing maybe a combination. Like on the higher end, people are buying probably slightly more expensive float tanks and doing slightly more expensive construction. And at the lower end, people are probably buying cheaper float tanks and doing cheaper construction. Yeah,
definitely. And again, there's like both how people are answering that question and what you decide to do for your own center and types of tanks, and whether you're in the middle of a city or out in the countryside, like all of these are going to affect how much is going into your individual build. So don't assume that if you're coming in a little under, if your ratio of tank to construction is different than the industry average, that you're somehow doing something wrong. It largely does have to do with how many tanks you're installing at once and how much crazy soundproofing you need to block out from city noises and airplanes and things like that.
Yeah, you might just have less expensive construction if you're way outside the city and you don't have a ton of noise to deal with.
Yeah, just throw your float tank on a grassy hill somewhere.
Yeah, call it good. Sprinkle some salt in a lake.
Sprinkle. I think I need to be a little more than that. This giant industrial dump operation of Epsom salt or something into a lake. So if you have any more questions, go to floattanksolutions.com/podcast and we will answer them.
Yeah. All right. Have a good one.
Bye.